With the final American troops leaving Afghanistan, there are a lot of unknowns about the future of the country and the region. Today, we're joined by Dr. Ian Hurd again. He's a professor at Northwestern University. Thanks so much for joining us again.
My pleasure.
Dr. Hurd, when we talked last time, you said you agreed with the withdrawal. You agreed that President Biden should have withdrawn the troops, right?
Yeah, I think it's certainly the right thing to do. It's probably long overdue. The original invasion of Afghanistan was really designed to kind of crush the government at the time and punish it for supporting the organizers of 9/11. But that goal was accomplished in 2002. Since then, the U.S. has been spending a huge amount of money and losing a lot of life in order to to pursue a kind of fantasy of creating a government that the U.S. liked there. That was never really going to work. So getting out is a much smarter way of keeping Americans safe rather than staying in.
And then in 2011, the U.S. got rid of Osama bin Laden, which was their initial reason for going. What is going to, and who is going to benefit the most from this withdrawal from Afghanistan? And who hurts?
Those are good questions. I think the people of Afghanistan will no doubt benefit from having less war going on around them. So fewer bombs, less destruction, perhaps a little bit of stability and the chance to maybe rebuild a little bit of the daily life that regular people crave so much.
But can they do that? Do they have the wherewithal and the equipment to do that?
Well, stopping the war is certainly the first step because that was destroying so much of the infrastructure. But I think the real challenge is going to be that the Taliban will have a very hard time governing because they don't have any money. They can't pay for imports and fuel. They can't pay the bureaucrats. They can't pay the army. So there's going to be a ton of pressure there where people are expecting something better that the government probably won't be able to deliver. And that's going to produce a lot of anger in the population, I imagine, pretty fast if conditions start to deteriorate. But that's not to say that the U.S. was going to help by staying there. The U.S. presence was probably making all that harder. But it still remains a very hard road for the new government.
What about ISIS-K, though, being still in the region?
Yeah, there's a lot of armed groups there floating around with different kind of political agendas and different outside backers. It looks like ISIS-K, as people are now calling them, might be backed by Pakistan. And those groups all have their own independent ideas about who should be governing. Often it's a very local demand for how things should be done locally. And they have a lot of capacity for blowing stuff up. They don't have a lot of capacity for building things and creating a kind of governing structure and local law and order. So they're real spoilers that could make things a lot harder. And they don't have a lot of capacity or interest in making things better for people. It's a real mystery how those puzzle pieces are going to come together.
And the million-dollar question, what about the Americans and the allies that are still in that region and can't get out?
Yeah, well, the airlift has been really quite phenomenal, as the president was explaining today. 120,000 people evacuated in about 3 weeks. There are still a few American citizens there, as he pointed out. There are people who declined the help that the Americans were offering to leave earlier, so they were choosing to stay. They may have changed their minds now. I bet the Americans are going to keep an undercover presence that will help get these people out if they want to. The real trick is going to be to see if the Taliban simply allow people to leave. That would be the most direct thing. If people want to leave, they should be able to leave. If that happens, then there'll be no problem at all, especially if the U.S. is open to having people move here to improve their conditions. And we can be hopeful of that.
Always great talking to you, Dr. Ian Hurd of Northwestern University. Be safe, be well.
You too. Thank you.